Gonna be a little bit until it works. I'm gonna think. I do still have that 1 minute free run, right? Like it's why is it saying unlisted? I definitely changed that. Wait, no, where's the option for that? How far? Ah, there it is. Public. Please. After the stream's done, then I want it unlisted. Somehow that's a difficult option to get. Whoop, whoop. Okay. Should be getting an image right now. Or not. The ad blocker is gonna vanish when quality of life add-ons are not called as ad blockers. Okay, there we go. That looks good. Okay, so let me copy URL. Let me share around that I am live. Oh, um, let me just start straight out. Clouds, right? Look outside. Like 50-50 chance you see some, or maybe none, or maybe it's night. So like 30% chance, I guess. Completely made up number. Clouds, this is not a cloud, this is a cube, but it's gonna be a cloud. It's gonna have a cloud. Cloud. Hey. It's gonna be transparent. Completely invisible. Funny Metal Gear Solid edit here. And now we've got a cloud. It's a cube cloud. It's not really pretty. It's really kind of dull. If we put some nice sky-looking light on it, it's looking a lot more cloud-like. Still not really cloud-like though, because it's really, you know, it's really cube-like still. So let's go into shading. Zoom out onto it. And here we've got the shader view. You know, shader editor. It's going to be up here in the tabs, or you could just make your own thing by dragging open your windows like that. And changing it by using this menu thingy up here. Or it's going to be down in some spaces. And all of these here, it's up in the corner, but you know, it can be flipped. Whatever. Anyways, we're gonna get a texture coordinate, get the object, and get a vector math node. I'm pressing Shift A, and then just typing in letters to get the nodes, because looking through these, it's gonna be way too slow after some point. But it's gonna be helpful to know that all of these categories exist, you know, converters for math and complex manipulation stuff. Well, simple manipulation stuff. Complex manipulation is in textures, and shaders is all of the surface and interior stuff. Anyways, we've got the math node, which is vector math, which means it's 3D space instead of 2D space or whatever. And we're gonna get the distance, plug that into the density, and then, oops, mix, nope, math, subtract 2. And that's gonna be a little ball of cloud. No, it's really fuzzy here. I'm gonna really lower the quality so we can get to the denoising a bit faster. That's about what it's gonna look like at this point. We increase what it is subtracted from, not what it is subtracting, what it is subtracted from, because by default, distance, if I were to quickly move this down, 5, 10. We look at this, where it's in the surface, you know, the distance is on the surface now. This is what it looks like. So it's 0 at the center, and the number gets higher at the distance because, you know, it's measuring the distance from 0 outwards. So if we subtract from a number this value that's coming from this distance node, we get this instead. That's how that works. We can actually start with this as a half sphere, or even like this, because it's a lot faster. If we do this, we can prototype clouds or whatever else we want to do, which uses volumes a lot faster. Let me just take this, add a subtract node here, and add any noise node, like let's get any except for this one. Forget this simple noise texture here. We get a little warp, plug it into the object, so it's following, and set the scale to something low, increase the detail, and it's not really very noticeable, so if we get another math node in between those, multiply by about 4, that's pretty noticeable. If we go back to the cloud node, you know, it's a bit small, because it's subtracting. I'm going to increase the size, and here we go, it's looking a lot more cloud-like. It's got a, you know, that's a little puffball. It's pretty cloud-like. But if we do it like this, what we have to do if we want to make a lot of clouds, if we copy it, and you know, Blender has a little thing where if you move things in a row like this, and you want to save some time in rendering, you set these to a load value, select 2, and we've got this issue. We don't want this issue, because, you know, transparency here, you've got only 2. You can increase that, flip, 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 and hope we have enough of them, in every case from every direction, and hope it doesn't take up too much time. We don't want to hope, we want to know, and by not even needing the situation to happen, we know all the time. So let's move that up to 4 bounces. Select this again, and scale it like this. In this way, we got all the surface area to work with, you know, surface volume, this big rectangle volume to work with. It's not going to really work with distance in this case though. So what we are going to do is we are going to delete that. And look at that, that's looking interesting. We don't want that either. We're going to go to converter, it's separate XYZ. Get the Z. It's gonna, you know, have this Z. If we look at this like this, we can see, you know, that's interesting. We're gonna want to use the math node and get to, you know, absolute. We can just click and press B. That's all, like we have add. Click B, and we're all already set. And we've got the cloud layer with little wavy bits here, which is looking pretty nice. I mean, if you've got perfect complete cloud cover, this is what you want. Basically, you know, that's clouds. Cloud A done. Let me save this file. How to cloud. So let's save this material, copy it. Let's make cloud B. Cloud B is a bit more complex. So when we've got this, what we've got is a thick cloud layer with no spots. It can happen, but it's not always what we want. Sometimes we want individual clouds visible through the visible sky, but in between the clouds. So what we do then is we get another noise node, scale it down way more, or just a little, or way more, whatever we need. And we get another multiply this time. Hold on. We plug it in like this. So, we've got its own multiply here. This one, it's going to be a lot higher. You can choose different values. Because this is so much smaller, that's a lot more visible. Oops. We can use an add node, we can use multiply. It's really trial and error for a lot of things. This is not going to work perfectly. And also do it different ways. So if we've got this value, I think I messed something up. Hold on. Let's look at this from the side again. We've got this. I did have a better cloud system just a little while ago. Let's look at this. Let's look at this. Okay. So this is the cloud system I made earlier. And I forgot a little bit about how I made it. Instantly. Happens all the time. So, look at those clouds. Don't those look nice, Enophi? Scale those up. This keeps up. It's pretty consistent. We're gonna want some differentiation over distance if we make really big cloud layers, but this is already pretty massive. And what did I do here? Lots of things. I combined in different ways. Maximum is the combination thing I used here, and then I subtracted this from that. Okay. And then multiply that one. So I'm guessing that was in something at some point. I believe I had some plans to have something in here, something manipulating the cloud layer, which is gonna come maybe if I get there. But yeah, let's switch the roles here. Switch these around. I'm going to prototype while in this mode. You should have taken a screenshot because I've got no short-term memory, basically. I say these things and then I don't do them. Okay, so yeah. Snipping tool. don't look too closely. It's not yet the time for some of those things here. Okay, subtract, divide. That is yes. Okay. So subtract usually reverses these values. If you instead divide and plug it in over here, you instead get this. Yes, that's giving us a sheet. And that sheet. Okay. Yes. Okay. Switching these around. Oops. Yep. Okay. Now, I want to make sure that I get clear sections where I can pass through. So, it's not gonna happen like this. Because, in this mode, I either get, an extremely thin line, or a thick, complete line, but it's always gonna have something in there. So, it is like that. I believe what I would need to do here now is add something. Yes, yes, yes. I'm gonna take this value. Okay. Let me just increase the resolution on those. And I can control the thickness of the rough low scale noise using this multiply node. If I instead add. What if I instead? Yeah, no, okay. What if I instead use power? So high values are even higher. Doesn't seem to give me. Ooh. Yeah, no. That's not visible. Hmm. Okay. So like this, peaks are going to be higher and valleys are going to be a little bit more smoothed out. That is the idea, at least. Yes, yes. Okay. So now, just look here. And if it is possible, or that it seems possible that it can touch the top or bottom, just increase the size a little. And it's all good. That is some nice clouds. Let's save that. and compare. No thick cloud layer, empty spots, and this, oops, makes them more spotty or less spotty. We can now also do stuff like, hold on, here. We've got this distortion thing. I think 6 or 7 is a good value here for testing. Can increase the distortion of the big noise and get clouds that look like this. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot. A big thing about making these clouds is, you know, clouds over time they change. So if you just enable 4D noise and type hashtag frame divided, and then the higher the number is, the slower it's gonna move. So let's say 32. And let's just look at one of these noises so we can look at it in real time, sort of. And that's more visible. You can see slightly it is moving. And it's looking already pretty cloud-like at this, right? No. If you have it in an animation and you can take the time to render it all out, let me quickly fake that by going into performance mode. 32-bit, okay. Oh no. No. Maybe if I have it at 0. Ooh, okay. Need to change that. And change the rate as well so it's more visible. You can see shapes kind of moving around, I guess. This is an older graphics card. The wonder I can stream and do this in the same time. Okay. So, you know, that's one more way of doing it. Now, I want more cloud layers. So let's copy that again. I've already saved it. Cloud C, again building on the prior clouds. I'm gonna be looking mostly at this thing. And here I'm gonna and I believe it should already be it. We've got 2 cloud layers. Now, are they gonna touch? That's the question now. Ah, yeah, this looks more visible for all that, you know, cloud action. Look, they are going to even touch a little bit in some parts. Now, if I wanted it to be more dense at the lower layer or at the bottom, at the higher layer, I can take the height value. Again, this is all, if we quickly look, the height is based on the object origin. That is what this does. So it's gonna be this dot in the middle. You know, what that's at, that's where the 0 pointer is, where it's originating from. So if I take that value and let's see, let's subtract 4. If I add Let's see. Subtract. So if it's multiply. Thinking about how to best do this. Ping pong maybe? Let's see. So this is what ping pong does. It does basically, you know, this connection, but it's automatically and at a set distance, which you set here. And it also has the in-between values going up to the highest level and then down to the 0 and then up to the highest level and down to 0 in a row. You know, that's, you know, ping pong, back and forth, back and forth. Except imagine if the more distance the two players had, the higher they threw the ball. So yeah, that looks interesting. If you know anything about Fourier, there's a lot of crazy stuff that people can do. Now, okay. I believe it's time for some good old limiting of what's happening at the edges. We don't want anything to go beyond the top or the bottom edge. At the sides, those are supposed to be far enough away that it doesn't matter. But not too far that it's clipping beyond the camera. So that's going to be hard controlled by the modeler or world builder themselves. Or it's going to not matter when it's in an engine where it's not important to have. Because if you have a volume, let me demonstrate this real quick. If you have a volume like this, you know, and you've got a camera, let's get a camera over here, and it cuts off. Yeah, you can see all the corners of this mesh, you know. But if the camera's far clipping distance, which is important to have math be precise, even just a little bit clips into that can cause issues. Like, you know, it's gonna instantly shine through that there's nothing there for the camera to see, which is, you know, just how it works. It'd be nice if it wasn't, but it is how it is. And so you need to deal with that. That's just a little side lesson there. And I need to drink something. One moment. I got milk. Okay. I don't do small snacks, so I got myself a measuring cup with a handle, and that's my cup. Goes up to a liter. If you want to stay safe. I often don't. Okay. So, what was I doing? Yeah, I was gonna limit what's happening to the top and bottom edges. So let's go counting. First, let's make it symmetrical. So 5 up, 5 down. Whoop. Nothing bad. If I take this, subtract, add. Okay. This is what I just did. I added 10, subtracted 20, and let's make it, you know, adding 10 puts it up here, subtracting 20 puts the other bit down here. I'm gonna do something similar to that, so I'm just gonna copy this whole installation. And, you know, let's just look at that. Let's see. You know what? Let's go put an absolute on the vector math. So we've got this. And that's already pretty much what we want. So, let's see. Yes. Nothing more really needed. If we just put it over here. And yeah. How do I want to do this best? It's let's make it in like that. You know, it's just about inverting, and we can then clamp if we want to keep it boring, or we can keep it like this if we want to keep it interesting. And then what we do is we go all the way up here and say multiply. Take a little notch here, plug that in there, delete that, we don't need that anymore. And incorrect. Incorrect. Let's see. Why have I made incorrect? I haven't really dealt with negative values at this point, have I? And that's biting me in the ass right now. So, looking at this here, we've got all this positive value are going up here. If we clamp it, it's gonna stay like that. If we don't clamp it, it's gonna go up 10, 20, 30, 40 values. Up here, that's the value of 40. I can probably confirm that if I want to prove myself dumb. It's gonna be incorrect if I snap it to 40 and just subtract a tiny little sliver. That's that. So you know, if we go up to 40, because the value of 40 is exactly at this line, you can see tiny little pixels forming. You know, let's make it 99. You know, that's the line, because that's right where 40. Well, of course, numbers can go negative, as you may have learned in grade school or whenever that happens. And so up here we've got, you know, a 0, here we've got 40, 30, 20, 10, 0, negative 10. And that's an issue. We could clamp this value. And presumably, you know, that erases all these issues. And that's boring, because I want to have more intensity to work with at the center for various things. So, what I'm gonna do instead is I'm gonna do a little thingy I like to make sometimes. I am pretty sure there's better ways of doing this, but I can use a mix node. I used to just use a mix node with color, but this works as well. And plug into the positive, and the negative is staying at 0. Okay, so explanation. The factor here. Okay, no, wait. Let's make it properly. Less than 0. No, like this. Okay. That's it. Okay. I think at least. Is it? No, it's a clamp factor. Okay. Now we've got it. I had this still clamped. Okay. So that's a very simple setup. If it's less than 0, this value for the factor, which is either A or B, is going to be a 1 for anything that's below 0. Which is, you know, happening up here. If we go from up here, from this subtract here. This is from 0 to negative 10. We don't want the negative 10, so anything below 0, anything in this area basically, is clamped down to 0. No negatives. Anything above that goes into A, which is not going to be chosen, and that's going to be going as high as it wants to go. And if we have that, we can have super intense clouds, which are going to be incredibly voluminous. Now what we can do is we're using this setup, have clouds moving as high as and as low as we want them to. Basically, if I'm correct, and I hope I am because I'm about to leave some stuff, or like, hold on. There's a shortcut for copy, X, paste. Yeah, let's just keep it here in case I'm wrong. Because ping pong, yes. So now we can have this setup. This setup means in the middle it's gonna be incredibly intense clouds, and at the bottom and the top it's gonna cut off smoothly. I can, even say 0 and it's gonna be smooth, not any rifles at all. We can go by steps of 5 and it's gonna have all these cloud layers and fun stuff like that. Now, there's an issue with this, which is that these cutoff points are looking very unnatural. If we go back into volume mode, it's a little off the top, a little off the bottom, like with a razor. We don't want a razor, we want some wild growth. These are clouds, these are natural formations. Unless you were tinfoil heads, in which case, whatever, the lizards are really creative. So instead of this, you can subtract from subtracted let's make it like that. Yeah. And that's looking wrong. I'm gonna need to yeah, okay, so if I multiply, can I well, that's certainly interesting. Now that's a cool effect. I want to see that as clouds. Side tangent. Let's see what that looks like. Ooh. Told you the lizards were creative. I would like to move in here and render it, but it's gonna take a few minutes to have that truck. So I can just look at the distance here. But yeah, anyways, let me figure this out properly. So if you got this, it's boring. That's gonna normalize all that. I need to have it in another spot. Okay, hold on, let's see. So that's the shape it's taking. That's multiplying. Right. Yeah, that's not really relevant anymore that much. I believe it's gonna be in this direction. So See. The thing is, when I do stuff, I don't know math. I do trial and error math. I am figuring out. Oh, definitely interesting. And something I will be looking at whenever I do some more oil slick stuff. Power. Power is giving me some good clouds. Ooh. If you saw that, that's what happens when the math isn't quite ready. Yeah, look at that. It's denoising in ways it is never meant to work. So it's causing some glitches. Let me have this here so I'm a little bit more safe in my actions. So what if I had a ping pong, ping pong, ping pong? Ping pong. Oh. See? Let me it's looking a bit better. Ah, divide by 2. Maybe 3, even. Does seem to move a little bit something up here. But yes, no, that seems to look good. Is it good? Oh, it is good. It is good. I can now have very strong clouds. I believe. I can now have very strong clouds. Yes. 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 Which would start here. Let me just. Ooh, yeah. Okay, so it doesn't start there. Does it start here? It sure does. Does it continue to exist over here? It sure does. Okay. So if we're up in this direction, we've got settings like those, the better, I believe. Because stuff back here is gonna fundamentally change the whole look in some more fine ways. We can always make weak clouds. Let's look at those. So we've got this thick cloud layer, and if you weaken it, because sometimes the math doesn't allow for changes, subtle changes like this. So it's still, you know, pretty opaque. But if we compare it to this, you know, it solidifies a lot faster. And at some point, divided enough, and we've got just a light haze, which can be very nice. Okay, now here's another factor with the volumes. This volume rate here, this is gonna change how it looks a lot. Depending on the settings. Like the material. So, whip. Bam. Look at that. That's solid, fluffy wool. You know, if I understand it right, by default, the detail of this stuff, it's gonna, you know, have some impact because it's basically a big mesh of mathematics being done on mathematics. It's like multiplying multiple formulas with each other, multiplicatively, blah, blah, blah. Intense stuff. Very, very intensely thinking works in my computer right now. So if you have the step rate pretty low, it's going to be able to think about it in much smaller intervals, which is going to change how much light it lets through, because before it has to think about if that light is even allowed to get through. For example, if I set it to 5, ooh, fluffy, very rough, very blurry. Like, blurrier than clouds are normally even. But if you look down from planes or up from the sky, from the floor, they are pretty detailed sometimes, you know. Some of them are very fluffy, very smooth, but sometimes you've got bricks like this, you know, throwing shadows onto each other and all that stuff. Very beautiful. Very nice to look at. Takes a lot of time to render. Don't do it at night. At night, just take black planes. You know, at night, this is your clouds. At daytime, this is. And it's gonna take its sweet time, and you are going to let it take its sweet time, and it's gonna look amazing. Okay, so, and here we can, you know, change how much light it lets through. Let's take a look. Let's leave it here. I'm not giving it too many samples. It's not gonna get too detailed. But it will still take a sweet time to make this happen. And you know, you would expand this over the whole sky or as far as you can handle. Seven, 8, 9, 10, ooh, 2 digits, 11, 12. Gonna restart it, but it's gonna look denoised from the start, so you get a more accurate representation of what it's about gonna look like when it's finished, and I'm not gonna have to wait the whole time. I'm gonna take another drink of milk. beautiful spot over here. A big piece of advice I'm giving right now. When you work with Blender and materials, have something else to do. Something that doesn't require your graphics card, possibly not even your computer itself. In other words, this doubling as an exercise screen, where you don't see any of my exercising. I've got some waves here. And that's about it. I mean, I've got a little mini bike thingy, but it's really rough. Pretty sure some spot of it is broken. It's not really providing any resistance, so I'm just kind of may as well just be free floating, but you know, it's not really working well. That's what I'm saying. That's about done. Yeah. So beautiful. Okay. So just I mean, that just looks nice, doesn't it? Okay, now protecting that. Let's check that all of them are protected. I want to have something breaking through these clouds and affecting them. It's pretty simple so far, still, right? Let's see. Where do I fuck this up? Let's fuck it up over here. Let me show you something really nice that I found out a long time ago. First, let's make it visible, of course. That's the most visible part. Take this, put it here, put it up to 5, 2. You do this, you don't even need any distortion. It mostly works well for rough surfaces. If you have a little distortion here, it works well for clouds as well. I think at least. Whoops. That increased the complexity a lot. Let's leave that out for now. What? Ah. Okay. So, let's say we have an object. Object being the fucking Tower of Babel. It's gonna be right there. And it's gonna be a little bit of an obstruction. The clouds are not going to really react to that. So, let me see. I don't remember if this is possible. I'm not too sure. In point density, can you? You cannot. Okay. I was wondering if you could select. A collection for that, but you can't apparently. Now, here is my ideal way of dealing with this, which doesn't work. Just is not functional. Ideally, here's what you would do. You would go over to geometry nodes. Make a thing. That thing is gonna get collection info from the obstructions area. And all those instances are gonna be, using an operation, turned into volume. And that volume, gonna hide this, it's gonna be this. You know, ideally, even more ideally, you can then blur this attribute, which you sadly cannot. You can change the density, but you know, that's about it. I can place more stuff in the obstructions real quick. But again, sadly, this is not a thing that works, that I am about to do. And in this ideal world, you would take these values, plug them into the material, subtract from these volumes, or like manipulate with the vector using these values, and then use that, and you've got yourself a really nice map of where objects are, when where they would contact anything, and to avoid that. But basically, ambient occlusion, but 3D cloud stuff. Unfortunately, in this current moment in time, Blender, drumroll please, has no volume overlap with materials in geometry nodes. They both have 3D things they can do, and they don't touch. They go, eek! Run away and hide. Nothing happens. And it's the world we live in. So when we've got an obstruction like a cylinder, we can go eat a fat one and say, oh god, I guess I'm gonna get this, and I guess I'm gonna get this, and it's round, so I can use this and maybe you know, because it's a tower, so it's going up top to the bottom. I can do this, and then what you've got is this thing, and you can match this to how wide that is, and yeah, grab one of these, which again just takes all the negatives and leaves all the positive values, and you've got a less messy thing. And then what you can do is you can go over here and say subtract that from this, and you've got this area, an exclusion zone around objects. A bit messy in this case. Make it a bit more smooth, and the clouds are gonna move all fine. And then what you can do is also you can have that affect the noise that's going in here, so ooh. Right, yeah, that makes sense. Multiply. Oops. Like, if you do some math here, you can have it affect that, and change how the clouds behave near the objects. Have that affect how high it goes, how low it goes, maybe your density can change, all that stuff. But you would need to do the same for each and every object, because, this doesn't have it, so you need to make a little box thing for this object. That just sucks. Now, one thing you would say maybe could solve this is point density. Get the point density, get the object, and the object, not particles. Let me expand this, because this one is always too small. Lots of points go to density yet. I do not like point density. I do not like point density. I can get it to work. I can get it to, work as intended. But once I get there, I cannot get it to work as I intended. And so, basically my solution for this kind of stuff is, I think I would rather simulate actual clouds. Take the hit to my hard drive space, buy an external hard drive, simulate on that, take the speed hit that creates, and use that. Hell, send it to a render farm. Send it to a simulation server somewhere in who knows where those are. Because this is unsustainable. Oh dang. Gear ratio, nice. Oh no, that's more than just a toy. Okay, cool. Streaming. Let's frame the right before. So to sum it up, I am not satisfied with the status quo. Thanks here. Oh, by the way, if you got these artifacts here when zooming out a little bit, you know, let me make them worse. You know, if you get these artifacts looking like that, that's because of the eclipse distance. If you change that up a little, just a little even, like to 1 or 2, they vanish completely. It's because of, this is clip distance, you know. So clipping is when you move towards an object and you look inside it. You know, this line here is, you know, the side cut you get when you look into the object, and the clip distance is intersecting with the object. And the thing is, the further these two numbers are apart, the more errors are gonna be introduced. Because mathematics and computers at distances can go wrong. And so if you have those kind of issues, like this, just change the clip distance, something where it doesn't happen. It doesn't always affect the actual render as much as it does the viewport, but it does still have an effect. And if you go way far off in the distance with your it causes problems. It can, if you've ever fell out of a game world where it doesn't kill you at a certain distance or speed, that's what I mean. Anyways, I do not, in all honesty, have a good solution to not having obstructions be annoying to make. I can make voids like these, but it's gonna always be a pain to get it to work with complex objects. At least until some better systems are in place. Or I learn shader math and use CPU rendering. Obviously, is that still a thing? Yeah, open shading language, that's what it's called. Basically all of this but in code. And there you've got other options because it's code. I do still want to make something different with this CloudSD. CloudSD currently has no separate identity. Perhaps I will make this a cleanup. Like where I clean up all the nodes, make them look nice. That seems good. Let's see. Goes here, so let's move all this back up. It's not too complex, so there's not too much to clean up. Let's leave these together. When you do things like these, there's no difference between this absolute and this absolute. Or maybe it should be over here. Yeah. Mm, let's see. Yunk. 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 Super simple for what it is. So that's the cleaned up clouds. Let's look back through these. Clouds A, just a thick cloud layer. B, some variation, very thin. C, thick clouds chaotic, with all the mess. And cleaned up. You can speed up things by reducing the detail and noises that are too small, too big to notice. Like if you've got a secondary noise anyways, you may as well... This just adds octaves at different scales and rotations and all that. Basically like Fourier mathematics. Oh yeah, one thing we can also do. We can change this now. So, these are supposedly underwater clouds now. Let me move a bit further away so you can actually see the denoised version properly. In time for this century to end. This is interstellar clouds, supposedly. You can also change this value, which does change a lot. You have just at 0.99. You know, we'll get this kind of clouds. These kind of clouds are pretty transparent if you have it at negative. You have these. One of these is very reflective. I don't remember exactly which. Apparently these ones. So yeah, these are reflecting back at like this, and we have it. Sunlight in the Earth's atmosphere, you say? Yeah. Looks cool. Messy. Denoising artifacts happen mostly for me when there's a dark areas. Like dark rooms where light meets absolute darkness. You get a lot of those. Because it doesn't, you know, when you've got noise threshold enabled mostly, that's an issue. If you don't have that, it can get a lot cleaner in dark areas. Which is a shame, because you would think that's where it's most effective. But if there's zero light, that's not a lot of noise. And the way noise threshold works seems to assume that not a lot of noise when there's zero light and not a lot of noise when there's a lot of light are equal. And they are definitely not, because when those two meet, light and darkness, you get the transitional area where there's tiny bit of light. Very few spots of light. And we've got a little tiny spot over here. Lots of darkness around it, which has zero noise because there's not a lot of light to fill noise. And it's already gonna assume, it's not noisy, so there's not a lot of light scattering that has to happen over here. So it's not doing a lot of light throwing in this area, because, it's dark, so there's no noise, so there's no need for light scattering, because there's no noise. And so you've got one singular pixel in the middle of a large ocean of complete darkness, and that's messy. That's just gonna mess things up. I should maybe show a render I made where I use these clouds, because I'm not going to be able to render one of these here to any satisfactory degree. So, let's see. File. Blender. Projects. Animations. Here's the Flash King. It's a work in progress right now. I did actually render the animation lately completely. But yes, here I use these clouds. You can see them throwing shadows. You can see them very, very fuzzy. This is what I imported the earlier clouds from, just to look at them a little bit closer. And they do work effectively. And yeah, here's the Flash King. Anyways, so that's about all I have for this stream. I'm hoping still to cut one of these together to a proper video one of these days. But it's gonna be it for today for me. I am still basically using these to train for more common interactions, but I've got still this nagging urge to just never talk to anybody ever again, which I'm trying to overcome, because I actually like talking to people. That's just the urge to not at all, ever. I don't like that. It is what it is. But I am working on changing it. Anyways,